In order not only to pass on knowledge to children, but also to foster their ability to think for themselves, teachers must continue learning themselves. Therefore, a variety of training programs are offered in Japan, which are tailored to teachers' experience levels. Beginning to experienced teachers continue with training throughout every stage of professional development to acquire the awareness, attitude, knowledge, and skills needed to do their job. Training is also provided for head teachers, vice principals, and principals in order to further enhance their professional skills. These training programs can be divided into formal training, which is conducted by the national and local governments, and voluntary training implemented by schools and teachers. Some local governments provide training programs in 5-year intervals, starting with induction training during the first year of service. Induction training and 10-year teacher training are required by law for all teachers. The national and local governments provide full support for teachers' professional development. Among the training programs, induction training is especially important. New teachers acquire a sense of mission as a teacher and practical teaching skills through a 60-day or longer training program conducted both inside and outside the school environment.
もう本当に全ての教科において実践的な内容であったりとか、授業の立て方についてであったりとか、細かなものまで教えていただきました。
同じ初任者の方々の意見を聞いて、私はまだ考えが甘かったなといろいろ考えてきたんですけれども、まだ甘いな、もう一度考え直さなきゃいけないなということが分かりました。
講義形式も非常に大事かと思うんです。例えば基本的な考え方とかどうあるべきかみたいなことを若い先生方に教えていく。また一方で今日のような研究協議ディスカッションの部分っていうのは同じ世代の受講者がしかも学校は違う、それぞれ抱えている環境も違うだろう。でも同じ立場でいろんなことをものが言える、聞いてもらえる。その部分が非常に大きいかなとは思いますね。子どもたちに力をつけたい、それには教員一人一人自身がまずもって力のある教員でなければならないという、そのためのさまざまな研修だというふうには考えております。
Teachers eventually undertake a leadership role at school as they become more experienced. To this end, the formal training programs are based on teachers' job responsibilities and technical knowledge. For example, there are training programs for administrative positions such as principals and vice principals to improve their school management capabilities. Once teachers return to the classroom, they may encounter serious problems. School-based training implemented by individual schools supplements the formal training with more specific practical training designed to help them solve these problems. In order to solve problems that arise within the school, school-based training is implemented under the direction of the principal, while teachers participate in study and training sessions. Lesson study constitutes the main part of school-based training activities. Let's take a look at how a lesson study is conducted. All the people carefully observing the lesson are actually teachers at the school. A lesson study provides teachers with the opportunity to learn together. Teachers observe each other's classes several times a year to improve their practical classroom teaching ability. Mr. Tsubota, Vice Principal of the Elementary School, University of Tsukuba, is working to promote the implementation of lesson study programs as chair of the Japan Mathematics Lesson Study Association.
授業研究っていうのは、自分が授業をやるものを多くの先生、他の先生に見てもらうという場ですね。で、したがって授業をやる人が独善に陥らないで、客観的にいろんな方の意見を聞いていいものにしていくっていうのが、そもそもの大きな目標ですね。子どもがどのように考えて発言するのかっていうことを知るいい場だと思うんですね。簡単に言うと教材を見る目を鍛えることと、子どもを見る目を鍛える場だと思います。
Lesson studies began in the late 19th century. Lesson studies took their present form during the early 20th century, where the teacher conducts a class from the student's viewpoint and seeks comments from other teachers on areas that need improvement. This approach to improving classroom lessons made it possible for teachers to improve their teaching ability and raise the scholastic level of Japanese children to one of the highest in the world. Now let's take a look at the processes involved in a lesson study. There are 3 major steps in a lesson study: lesson planning, presentation and observation of a lesson, and a reflection on the lesson. During the first step of lesson planning, the lesson objectives and how the lesson should be presented are considered. First, the teacher decides on the lesson objectives, including what kind of knowledge, skills, attitudes, or values he or she wants the students to acquire from the class. The teacher develops a lesson plan to achieve his or her objectives in light of the content of the entire unit being taught. It is important here for the teacher to predict various student responses. This is the key to making a lesson flexible. Next, the teacher selects teaching materials that are appropriate for the lesson objectives and the student's knowledge and experience. Sometimes the teacher creates and tries out his or her own teaching aids that are tailor-made to motivate their students' desire to learn. Finally, the teacher develops specific steps for teaching the lesson. What is important here is that the teacher considers how the students may act and think at each step of the lesson. At the same time, the teacher also thinks about what kind of questions to ask and how he or she will use the blackboard. The teacher may ask the head teacher for opinions about his or her teaching plan, or hold a preliminary review meeting with other teachers to seek advice on areas to be improved. After going through these preparatory steps, a lesson study is conducted and observed by a number of teachers. The lesson is taught according to the lesson plan. However, since the students' responses are unpredictable, the teacher must be ready for anything. What's important here is to be open to the students' ideas and incorporate them into the lesson while sticking to the lesson objectives. This will make the classroom an active learning environment. Observers, on the other hand, watch the classroom activities from the viewpoint of both the teacher conducting the class and the students. Observers prepare for a lesson reflection to be conducted later by paying attention to not only how the teacher is teaching the class, but also how the students are learning and where they make mistakes. The most important step in a lesson study is reflection, where the teacher who presented the lesson provides an overview of the lesson and then listens to comments from teachers who observed the lesson. First, the teacher who presented the lesson describes its objectives and then comments on the lesson, This is followed by a question and answer session. It's important that everyone suggests concrete alternatives for how the lesson can be improved by telling what they would have done or what should have been done differently to make the lesson better, instead of just telling the teacher whether the lesson was good or bad. The facilitator makes sure the discussion stays on track. These discussions not only nurture the professional development of the teacher presenting the lesson, but allow all the participants to develop an eye for observing a lesson, while paying attention to how the students think and express their ideas, and how the teacher should best interact with them. What they have learned through these steps will be applied to the next lesson study. It is essential to establish a structure for implementing lesson studies under the direction of the principal with the support of experienced teachers in order to make lesson studies a success. More important than that, however, is the teacher's own desire to improve. Lesson studies provide teachers with opportunities to learn together. Each participating teacher grows and changes their lessons for the better. Lesson studies provide teachers with opportunities to learn together. Now let's take a look at how they are implemented at this school. Takao Seiyama is a second-grade teacher at the elementary school, University of Tsukuba. Mr. Seiyama thinks that the students won't be happy learning unless he himself is happy about teaching. What do his students think about their teacher?
いろんなところが好き。すごい優しいです。かっちょいい。算数の授業も面白いし、楽しいなと思います。
School is over for the day. It's now dusk, and Mr. Seiyama is working alone, writing something on the board. He is making plans for the lesson he will present for a lesson study to be held in just 1 week. The lesson for this unit focuses on subtracting a 2-digit number from a 3-digit number. It seems to be different from ordinary questions where you solve the problem and fill in the answer. He is going to use a different way of teaching subtraction using a fill-in-the-blank subtraction problem where only the difference is known. The students will be asked to come up with the missing numbers.
虫食い算というのは普通式の1つ2つを隠すだけなんですね。で、今回私の場合は3桁引く2桁の全部を隠してしまおうと思うんです。答えは出ている。で、式を考えなきゃいけないというパターンなので、それだけでも子供は最初引きつけられるんじゃないかなと思うんです。
Getting the students motivated with a fill-in-the-blank subtraction problem wasn't the only purpose of the lesson. He wanted the students to find certain rules hidden in the answers to the problems. The first rule is that the minuend and the subtrahend increase by 1. The second rule is that there is the same number of equations as the value of the difference. For example, there are 3 ways of subtracting when the difference is 3, and there are 5 ways of subtracting when the difference is 5. If the students know these rules, they can find all the possible combinations of minuends and subtrahends more quickly. Mr. Hosomizu, head mathematics teacher, comes to see Mr. Seiyama. Mr. Sayama asks him for some advice on how to proceed with the lesson.
答えと個数が一致してますよね。この決まりをこの辺までやっていけば気づくんじゃないかと。
いいんじゃない？展開自身は。あとは子供に応じて使っていけばさ、無理にこうやって押し込めんじゃなくてさ、子供の考えをこうやって自由に動かしながら、先生がどっかで投げかけないとダメだよね。切り替えて。
そうなんですよ。
ここまでなんか気づいたことないとかさ。だから瀬山先生の一番いいのは、自分が楽しくないと子供も楽しくないだろうっていうことでね。だから夢中になっちゃって、怖いのはね、見えなくなっちゃうところがあるから、こうやって授業を組み立てる前に誰かに相談しとくのがポイントで、そういう意味では瀬山先生いろんな人にこうやって自分が作る前に話しかけてるからいいなと思うんですね。
答えが1の場合、2の場合、3の場合ってやっていくうちに、ある規則が見つかると思うんです。その規則を子供たちが発見した瞬間を楽しみに待ちたい、期待したいし、その言葉を拾ってみんなに広げて、で、じゃあ答えが9の場合は何個式ができるんだろうねっていう、この一言を言えるかどうかが勝負だと思ってます。
Mr. Sayama wants his students to discover the rules hidden in the answers. Will he be able to lead his students to the point of discovery?
じゃあ、あやねか青かやろう。始めよう。はい、お願いします。これ虫食い山のね四角のところなんだけど、ちょっと今からねどんな虫食い山かここにこう作ってみますから。じゃあ。
The lesson study was carried out a week later and was attended by a number of observers, including teachers from other schools.
どこがどうかな。ここはね四角です。
The entire equation is hidden except for the answer. It's like a puzzle.
これが
Mr. Sayama successfully captures most of the students' interest.
どんな数が入るでしょうかっていう問題。じゃあまず考えてみよう。はい、頑張って。あ、リコがいっぱい作っていいって聞いてるけど、いっぱいできそう？そうだね。そこはね。
作ると言っても3個しかできないよ。
あ、そう、3個しかできないの？
本当だ、3個しかできない。ほら。
Some students come up with the answers quickly. Others are having difficulty. They still can't find the simplest solution. 100 take away 97.
はい、それではこれから発表してもらいます。どんどんいた。じゃあタイまだあるんだな。はい。101引く98。
The students have discovered 3 answers. They are all correct, but one student made this comment.
確認。間違ってるところがあるって。なんかね、順番が反対だって言うんだけどさ。
The students discovered that the order of the equations should be rearranged. This was another point Mr. Sayama wanted his students to learn for themselves, because it would lead them to discover the rule that both the minuend and the subtrahend increase by 1.
ちょっと問題をね、ここで変えてみます。答え5の場合で四角の数考えてみて。
The students start writing their answers right away. 100 minus 95 is the first equation they come up with. It just so happens to be the first equation written on the board.
次行きますけども、聞きます。拓磨が最初この作るやり方って言ったんだけど、どうやってこれ作ったと思う？はい、どうぞ。
3桁の1の位が多くなるたんびに下の95、96、97、98とかが、の引く数が多くなっている。
これいくつ大きくなったの？1か。ね、
It looks like the children have realized that both the minuend and the subtrahend increase by 1.
これそうみんな。先生ね、はい、じゃあ始めてって言ったら東郷がね、すぐポーンと言ったことがあるの。なんて言ったかわかる？はい。高橋なんて言った東郷？
答えが5だと、作れる式が5個。って
言ったんだよね。何？
例えばさ、
待てよ、答えがじゃあ1の場合だったら何個あると思うみんな。本当？
Then came the moment Mr. Sayama was waiting for.
これだったらどうだ、何個あると思う？本当かな？
The children discovered the other rule. There are the same number of possible equation combinations as the value of the difference.
狙いもまあまあ考えてほしいことは考えたんですが、彼らの言葉説明をうまくねこうつなげたりとか、ちゃんと交通整理してその意味を他の子どもたちに理解させるっていうところがうまくできなかったなっていう気持ちはあります。
それでは今から瀬山先生の授業。
After school, a lesson reflection was carried out with Mr. Sayama.
瀬山先生から。
はい、面白いことに普段よく算数ができる子ほど最初できてなかったんですね。なぜかってことを後から子供に聞いたんですけど、できる子ほど答えが3になる場合の1の位の数から考えちゃってる、例えば、引かれる数が1で下は8だとかで、意外とできちゃった子っていうのはもう数を全体的に捉えてる、引かれる数と引く数の差が3だから100と97がポーンと出ちゃってるんですね。今回はさほどなんていうかな。
Mr. Sayama analyzes why some children had difficulties. One of the teachers proposes an alternative way of presenting a problem.
だからなんで1でやんないのかなと思ったの。そのわけは私がなぜ1がいいかなと思ったら、今日やりたいこういうところの内容が1で全部説明できちゃうのね。できない子なんかこれが一番悩むんじゃないの。こっちから考えていくもんやっぱり 9-8 は1とかね、1でやっとくとね、こういうのがヒントになるのよ、できない子の。
今日の場合3でやっても27、8人はパッとできてたので、今日みたいな、確かに最初から手がつかってなかなか分かんないのが10人ぐらいいたんですけども、この割合からしたら3でもどうだった、良かったんじゃないかなって思ったんですね。
これ以外にないっていうことの説明は上手にできてる、ね。
Mr. Tsubota, vice principal, made this comment.
感心しちゃったけど、せっかくカードを用意してるでしょ。3桁と2桁で5になるやつ。ああ、先生が書いちゃうのかと思って見てたね。子供に書かせたらずっと面白いのになと。で適当にさ、子供何人か当てて前出て書けって言ったら面白いと思うんだよね。並ばして。もう順序なんかめちゃくちゃでしょ。適当に何人か当てるわけよ。5個あるって子供が言ったら5人当てようって言ってね。自分で答えかけたらあんなに上手には並ばないし、重複するしさ。で足りないものがもう一目瞭然見えてくる。抜けてるのに。でそういうことをやると並べるっていう活動をみんなでやったことになるでしょ。
要するに子供によってもその決まりっていうのをどう取れるのかも先生と感覚のズレがあるから、それは一つ一つ取り上げていった方がいいのかなって、その一つ一つ取り上げてあげながらやっぱりみんなに共有化していかないと深まっていかないんじゃないかなって。
で、線の左側が一例。
Mr. Sayama received a lot of advice from experienced teachers. It was an educational opportunity that turned out to be quite an enlightening experience for him.
ただ教材についてね詳しくなるだけじゃなくて、子どもたちがどんなふうに学んでいくのかとか、そういう過程を考えていくいい機会になるので、それはすごく勉強になる機会だと思っています。はい、
自分たちが思いを入れて作った教材っていうのは自分も楽しめる。だから逆に言うと子どもも楽しめるんじゃないかという、楽しませたいイコール楽しめるんじゃないかという思い込みも入ってしまう。そういう意味ではこの競技会っていうのはとても大事な場だと思います。はい。
Mr. Sayama's lesson had a variety of carefully thought-out ways to make learning enjoyable for the children, such as teaching materials to attract their interest, and a shortcut to solving the problem by discovering some inherent rules. These important teaching skills were further improved through the lesson study.
教育が良かったというのはやっぱりいろんなアイデアをいただいたからですね。いろんな考え方、いろんな見方っていうのを授業者が持っていれば持っているほど子どもたちは幸せなんですね。 つまり先生が受け入れてくれる範囲が広がるからですよね。
どうしても先生がこれをやりたいと思うとですね、子どもに、なんていうんですかね、線路に乗っかるように誘導するわけですね。それをいかに誘導しないで子どもが発見できるかっていうことが最も大事で、それを工夫するところが事業研究ですね。人に見られるっていう前提がないとですね、そこまでは考えないと思います。見る人はですね、たくさんの先生の授業を見ることで先生の方法は一通りじゃないっていうことに気づきますね。で、自分でやってることを振り返ることになると思います。それから子どもが発表するアイディアを聞いてですね、子どもってなんて、素晴らしいんだろうということに気がつくと思いますね。
In order to promote lesson studies and share more case examples, exchanges beyond individual school frameworks are necessary. This occurs through open classes. Over 1,000 teachers gathered from all around Japan to attend this open class, where enthusiastic discussions were held on how to improve lessons. Mr. Sayama was one of the participants at this event, presenting an open class as a teacher. Mr. Sayama is carefully planning the lesson using the materials he prepared for today. Let's find out how confident he is.
やっぱり初めて扱うオリジナルな教材ですから、とても不安があります。ただ、もう不安な顔をね見せると子どもたちに伝わりますから、もう一応自分では割り切って精一杯やると。
In the afternoon, Mr. Sayama's students enter the hall.
はい、今日もが入った。はい。
Will they behave as usual?
勝ったらね、カイト、いいこと言ったね。ポイントを差し上げます。最初はグー。よしよし。
It appears to be a fun lesson for both the teacher and the students, as if they were playing a game. It seems that Mr. Sayama has succeeded in realizing his full teaching potential.
まずは本当に子どもたちとの先生との関係が素晴らしいと思ったんですね。ああいう関係は今日いい人になったからといってできるわけではなくてですよね。普段の子どもたちの思いを聞いてあげたりっていうことがあるからこそできてる関係だなと思ったんです。
今日は、どうもありがとうございました。
やっぱりいろんな思いで作ってるんですけども、授業はやっぱりこうやって多くの目にさらされることでこの教材とか授業っていうのが良くなっていくんでしょうね。結局もう教師やってるっていう方々にとってはもうなんていうかな、最後まで死ぬまでって言ったら変ですけども、もう子供のために勉強し続けるということなんだと思うんです。でね、やっぱり勉強し続けてる先生は授業がやっぱりどうしても上手くなります。上手くなれば子供たちが喜びますよね。これ子供たちが喜ぶ姿を見ると、それでまた次の活力が本当に湧くんです。これは本当に私味わった。
As teachers help their students to discover the joy of learning, the children in turn fuel the teachers' passion for teaching. The teachers continue to learn with an eye to creating the ideal lesson with the children.
人の授業を見るってそういうことだと思いますよ。いろんなね、自分にないものを見つけ出して自分を変えていくこと。だから世界中の先生はそれについては同等ですから、日本であろうが発展途上の国であろうがね、いろんな先生の授業を見て学ぶっていうことの大切な場なんですね。